Pennies Going in Raw is a production of iHeartRadio. The opinions expressed in the following podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security or investment product. It is only intended to provide education and entertainment about the financial industry and the stock market. Enjoy!
On this episode of Pennies Going in Raw, we discuss the Amazon split that just happened, the state of the market, and entering long-term trades.
You find out life's this game of pennies.
Oh, you guys know we only have a 40% runner. Hello, 40% is a fucking killing.
We've been compliant for too long. It's time we go to war.
I don't have a Roth.
Hugh knows so much about the market that his brain doesn't have enough room for grammar.
Hey, who told me about IDEX? It's going up a shit ton now.
Rob, 4%, baby. No way. 4 fucking percent.
You asked the exact same question with 2 words different.
It's like, man, I just got dick whipped for like 20%, and now that f***er's up like 50.
I bet Warren Buffett never did that.
I'm just making this voice memo to call out unusual whales to a fight.
The pennies we need are everywhere around us.
Pennies.
Going in Raw.
Featuring Dan, Deity Dips,
And Hugh, honey.
Produced by Vinny.
And Christian.
Let's go, baby.
Welcome back to another episode of Pennies Going in Raw. Today is Wednesday, June the 8th, and market not doing anything too impressive. Amazon had it split, chilling around this 120 spot. I thought a good thing to kind of do would be to kind of go over what your plan would be as it goes up. Like, let's say by August, it's 180 and it just went up, 5% a day, whatever it might be. Or if it ended up in August and it ended up being 75. How would you play it? Because I feel like there's so many different ways, is like we always talk about just pricing it and scaling it, as it drops, days it drops, buy, days it pops, sell. Or is there a way that you can make it a forever hold in a way that, hey, maybe I want to give this to my kids one day. I want this forever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I definitely. So the first thing that I think there's 2 parts of this that are really important. The first being that I think that if you're investing in individual stocks like Amazon, that you also need to have either I don't want to say necessarily like a separate account, but you need to have a good amount invested in just index stocks or either index stocks or ETFs, something that is going to be well diversified, and then you're taking a small chunk and investing it into individual stocks, and those individual stocks are going to be like one of the big 5 that just has that brand loyalty that everybody loves, that like we talked about inside earlier episodes, that we know that can potentially pivot to any industry, any growing industry at any time that they want. And Amazon is one of those. So I think that's the first really important part. And then the second part to ask yourself is, are you going to be contributing to this account and how much? Because that's going to determine how you scale in to these positions. Because if it's something where, you were inherited $100,000 from your grandmother, and now, because your grandmother, basically you were given this money, you inherited it, you'll really never, I don't want to say touch it, but you'll never really add to that money. You're just kind of hoping to grow this as a bonus.
You just have that 100,000, you just put in a TDA and you're like, hey, I want to end this.
Yeah. So that's gonna be the one way I would talk about. And then the second way is if something along the lines of you're starting with $10,000 and you're gonna add $500 a month for the foreseeable future. We'll say the next 15, 20 years. Just to put it on a large enough.
Like you're putting 500 in savings, and you're also putting 500 in your long-term investing.
Yeah, exactly. And so And so that's why I think is pretty important when deciphering which way to go. And so the first one that I'll say is is the grandma that gave you 100,000. So when grandma, when you inherit 100,000 from grandma, especially we'll call it at this level for Amazon, which is 123. There's a lot of room that it could move up or down. It's kind of like this tweener stage. And so the good news about this is that you're not buying at all-time highs. The bad news about this,
Imagine how many people have their stop loss at 99.99.
yeah. Well, that's how I ended up first acquiring Amazon at $999 a share, like right underneath 1,000, was because everyone had these stop losses like at like 110 or something. So it dropped, 110, 1,000 like $10. So it flushed. I just sat a bid out there. Oh God, this got to be like 5 or 6 years ago now. But I had a bid there for like months and months and months. And everybody's stop losses hit like 1,010, and it just wicked real quickly down to I think it was like 995 or something. And obviously my bid got filled, and so basically that was how I got filled. But yeah, you're right about the stop losses. But so what I'm saying is this: is that like I said, the good news, you're not buying at all-time highs. The bad news is that everything has gone absolutely chaotic. And I mean, I don't even know, there's so much to say, other than everything went absolutely chaotic and now it's pulling back a little bit. And, I think it's safe to say that the economy is in a little bit of shambles. But you really don't know how low it can go. So that's kind of where you're at. You're kind of at this tweener stage, and grandma gave you this 100 grand. So the first thing that I would do is that I would decide, how much do I know about fundamentals and how much do I want to know about fundamentals? Because again, in my personal opinion, I believe that you should only take 10 to 15% of what you have in ETFs to put into individual stocks, because inevitably the chances are against you that this whatever stock you pick goes to zero. Now, again, I'm saying that I think it's okay to choose. I'm going to go out on the limb and say that it's okay to choose Amazon and Apple as individual stock picks. However, you really never know what happens. I mean, if we take Yahoo in the dot-com bubble, or any of the other stocks that from the dot-com bubble, over 50% of them are not trading right now. And I think the stat is, and we'll have to look it up, but I think the stat is 90% of stocks go to zero. So there's some, you're betting against you're literally betting against super odds. I mean, you really have better chance of going to Vegas than individually stock picking for the future for like 20, 30 years out. Like, that's crazy. Like, Vegas gives you better odds, to put it in perspective. However, of course, we know that the few that hit big and they're life changing, and they're course altering for your kids, your grandkids, etc.
Well,
And also, it's just a
you think about
badass
it,
party conversation.
like with like what you're saying about with Amazon, these so-called no-brainers with what'll still be around. I'm sure 20 years ago, people thought like Ford would be a lot higher today. I'm not sure if this Google chart takes into account splits, but if it doesn't, it's down a good bit from 98.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you're spot on. And so that's the thing is that it's pretty nerve-wracking. And it's pretty nerve-wracking. And so that's pretty much like the first thing I want to talk about was like, these super odds are against you, and you definitely should know that. And that's why I wouldn't really go over 10 to 15% of whatever you have in ETFs into individual stocks. And then on top of that is that, and this is what we're going to talk about, is scaling in. And when you scale into something, so again, we'll first talk about grandma. When grandma gave you that 100,000, the first thing, and this is just a side thing, is that I would probably take some of the 100,000 and just put it off to the side. Like take like 15, 20K and take 15, 20K.
Put it on black.
Yeah, put it on black and go on a trip or something,
No, put it
do
aside,
something.
No, okay, but
Yeah,
but
well, do
with it-
something
with it,
cool.
we're just
is
talking
what I'm
about
saying.
how are we scaling in with it?
Yeah, will you let me get there?
Okay, well,
And so
fuck the
then-
traveling. We're not traveling, dude. We're going all in Amazon.
Well, so this is the thing, okay? is that you want to, you really want to have no stress when you're scaling in with some of this stuff, and that's why most of these you got to look at for 15, 20 years from now, and so that's why it's really important that it's not that this isn't going to be an account that you're going to open up and check every 5 to 10 minutes while you're at work.
Yeah, you have Amazon on your stock widget on your home screen, and if you see it down a good bit, that's when you're adding.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one of those things where, like keep that in perspective. Okay. So like the sizing is the most important thing here. And so with the 100,000, let's just say that, you have the correct size and the 100,000 really isn't anything crazy to you, which is, good for you. Then
Must be nice.
yeah, must be nice. Then the way that I typically do it, and the way that I tell most people, or when I talk to most people, is that it's really going to depend on your risk. However, if your risk is higher and you have a let's call it like an easier stomach with risk, that's fantastic. But understand that you're leaving almost no downside risk. I mean, you're leaving, the more bullets that you spend up here, if it does drop, let's call it another 60%, it can still keep going lower. And that's the only thing. So I like to err on the side of caution with most of this stuff, because again, individual stock picking is a loser's game overall. And on top of that, we really don't know where the economy is going to be inside the next 12 to 18 months. I would say that the next 12 to 18 months are extremely critical. So, and that's why you need to create a plan. So if I were you, the way that I would typically do it, and the way that we talk about a lot, is doing the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20%, scaling in another 20% of whatever cash that you have. So for instance, like here, it would be 20%, and then at $100, right around $100, you would add another 20%. Or if we're using $100,000, another 20 grand, something like that. Or the other thing that you could do is that you could just kind of scale in a few bucks whenever you feel like it. So I used to know a buddy who had a pretty good amount of money, and what he would do is that he would scale into Amazon on the really big down days and basically trade around a core position. So, for instance, let's just say that his core position was $30,000,
and that's a really stress-free way. It doesn't require the amount of time. Like it may seem like, hey, yeah, I'm trading, but I mean, you can do that. Just have alerts set, or even just sell limits and stuff.
Yeah, so he would always keep a $30,000 position, but when the stock would be down 3%, he would add, let's call it like another $5,000. And then if it was down another 3% the next day, it was down another it was down another 5,000, he would add another 5,000. And so this was a way to where, he could get some money on the street, hold a core position. And then when it finally did have like a good 4 or 5% day, because he was averaging down bit by bit little pieces, he would cut what he had sold for a pretty nice profit. And so that's the way that he would do it. So, that one's a little more intense than the buy and hold. But again, is that then he looked at it as reinvesting the dividends. So whatever he made, so let's just say that, on his $50,000 position, he made, $2,500. Then now he would add to the core position. So instead of a 30,
now you just have one to hold.
Yeah. So instead of a $30,000 position before, now he has a $32,000 position core position. And then again, same thing is that, next time that it had a really big down day, he would add $5,000. Then if it had a really green day the next day, he would just sell it. And so that's the way that he would do it. So that when he would average down on the really big red days and sell the really big green days. And that's the way they did that. And then just hold the core position and add to the core position. And so I like that. I think that that's a really good way to build profits into a long-term investment. However, like I said, is that takes a little bit more, that takes more work, obviously.
More screen time, yeah. I think, and then trading around the core, we used to talk about it a lot in a sense of when we're waiting for catalyst, because we'd always be waiting and waiting and waiting. And there were just there's stocks like we always talk about, like Mark in 2020, how it just have those the company would tweet every single day and it'd go up like 4%, and you just sell it, popped until the catalyst came. We were just trading around that core, and as you sold for profits on 15% of your position, you just add more. And then on the next day when it dips, and slowly as your account builds, your position size builds. And I mean, as simple as it sounds, I mean, I feel like we've stopped talking about it enough.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, 100%. And so that's why that's really like trading around the core position would definitely be the way that, if you could do it. Also is that like we talked about, is that even though the person I just mentioned was building into the position, I mean, you could also just take those profits out. And I mean, you do that trade enough times, and you're effectively going to make that money back, in a few years probably. And obviously that's
and like
really
we
cool.
talk with Penny, nothing's wrong with just trading one stock.
Yeah.
And if you master that, hey, I mean, you've got a skill for quite a while.
Exactly. And there's actually a guy that I follow that just trades Tesla as well. He's actually a funny follow as well. I don't follow him because he trades Tesla. I more follow him for his funny tweets. But yeah, and I think that's really profitable. So that's the one that we just talked about, the grandma inheritance. And then the second one is, let's just say you're starting with $10,000 and you're going to add $500 at a time. This is a scenario where, I'm not going to really say I would trade around the core as much on this one, until you build up a little bit of a position and a little bit of a liquidity.
But I do feel like there is some exception to that, because there are some days where you're just like, should it be up 8%? I mean, for Amazon, it's 8%.
Yeah.
But for anything else, I mean, you'd be like, holy shit, 45%, dude, I got to take some. I think there's always the exception to take some profit.
Oh, I totally agree. But in a scenario where it's like, I wouldn't add $5,000 and then, knowing that the part that I was going to get to is the difficult part about knowing that you are about to have $500 enter the account, or $500 more buying power. You might get a little quick with the ads. And that's the one thing that I don't want to see is like, Amazon's only down 1%. I'm going to add here. Because that's one of those times where, it's just really easy to get yourself stuck.
That $500, one share is 20% of it. You can only do that five times.
Exactly. And so especially like if you're starting with like a smaller account and you're going to be adding the $500, I would build it up a little bit, especially if the position's going your way, let it go, and then kind of build that position into it. And then like Dan was saying, so, they have knockout earnings or something and they go up 6, 7, 8%, definitely takes them off the table. But overall, if you were starting with a smaller amount, and that, let's just say, let's use the example that we just used, $10,000, and you're basically going to be contributing $6,000 a year. That's going to basically double your initial investment by 15 months in. And so this is a time where I think it's okay to, go a little bit heavier on your initial buy, than if you weren't contributing, but because you're contributing, it's something where, I think that you can put $5,000-$6,000 into the initial position, which is, 50% of the account. So that's a pretty lot. And then And then because you're adding $500 in your cost basis thing, I would just keep the extra $5,000 on the side and just, cost average in, and then do it like that. And so that's the way that I would probably handle the smaller account where you're going to contribute $500 every week, or, $1,000 every month, because that's the way where, you still have cash on the side and it's a pretty good amount of cash. However, every time that you get, when that $500 gets in there, you're going to put that right in there, and you're gonna put that right in there, and cost average in. And so that's the way that I typically would do it, and that's the way that, like, I know a lot of college kids when they're coming out, they ask how I would do it. And over the course of 30 years, it's really not going to matter too much if, let's just say, Friday, the day that you get paid, Amazon is up 3%, and you decide to add the five shares, that's not really going to matter in 30 years, that 3%. So those are the two different ways I would do it.
What point do you think you accept your long-term investments fucked? Like, do you ever slow down on, like, let's say with our option B, not our option B, but our other scenario where, let's say by January it's $60, it's down 50%. And you got to keep in mind it dropped 35% before the split. So effectively it's probably down like 65, 70%. Where do you accept a loss on a long-term trade as opposed to your short-term ones? Because everyone says, like, hey, start investing soon. But if picking stocks is a losing game, why the fuck we investing?
Yeah. So this is where I, the two things that are going to come to mind are going to be, one, making sure that your risk management is really good. And what I mean by that is talking about, having the what's the word I'm looking for? Having only 10 to 15% of your ETF money inside individual stocks. That's the first thing that's crucial. So that, if something like Amazon does one day go down to like $20 a share or something, you're okay with it. You're okay with that. Because there have been wild bounce backs. And again, is that sometimes it's the underlying, it's not necessarily the underlying equity, but it's the overarching macro stance of the economy. And
say that shit again.
It's not necessarily the underlying equity, so the Amazon, but I'll say like the outside macro environment that we're currently in. Is that a better way to put it?
No, I just thought that may have been like the smartest sounding shit you've ever said.
And that's what happened in and let me see, in 2008, or what was it, 2001, whenever, we talked about it a few times, the Jeff Bezos, when Amazon was at $8 a share, I think it was 2001 or 2002, he sent out a letter saying that this is the long game, if any investor wants to make money tomorrow, this is not the stock for them. And that's the type of, that's where, again, the risk management comes into play. And where it would change the thesis, and this is where it goes back to, how much do you know about fundamentals? This is one of those times where, how much do you know about fundamentals? Because let's just say that a blue chip, your company, we could take Amazon, Apple, whatever, is let's take Apple. Apple makes like 26 billion a quarter, I think. Okay. Now, if we start to see too many quarters in a row where that number is now declining, and it's not like due to production or something like that. And again, you can't really trust a company because they'll say it's production.
I feel like for Apple, you gotta wait if two iPhones come out and both there, and like, truly though, I mean, like, once people stop buying iPhones and like the new iPhone, you gotta think that's where their brand loyalty is really, really in. And yeah, they have a ton of other like killer products. I obviously love their AirPods and other shit, but I mean, like, once people stop buying the iPhone, you imagine like that's when it's gonna really open up the smartphone sector and then really open everything else up.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so that is really important. is that waiting a few quarters, because everybody has a bad quarter. Hell, everybody has a bad year. Hell, everybody has a bad year or two. But it's when you're seeing the dynamic shift in the fundamentals between and this can be due to a few different things, but you see a shift in growth, you see a shift in the fundamentals, and their fundamentals just aren't as strong. That's where it's like you start reevaluating the position, because if we think about, like, let's take general, if we take GE, okay, if we take Ford, I mean, we could take any of them, but when you start to see the brand loyalty is still there for a lot of people, like even the GE.
Dude, go to any Sonic at fucking Alabama, and you tell me that Ford doesn't have fucking brand loyalty. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, exactly. But has Ford been overtaken? Yes. And so this is where it comes down to, is that even though the brand loyalty can be there, they can still be knocking numbers out of the park. If the fundamentals aren't aligning with everything else, then it's telling us a different story. It's telling a different, more important story than what you're seeing on the news or in commercials and things of that nature. Like, the company can still be doing billions of dollars, but if you bought it when it was doing trillions of dollars, well, that really doesn't do you any good. So that's why even if you're not a big fundamental person, and you don't really care about the fundamentals, it's important to at least know a few of the metrics, like what's their cash burn rate, what's their revenue, operating expense, so that when their earnings reports come out, and you can honestly take a look just every time that their yearly earnings comes out, and if their operating expense is starting to fly through the roof, their revenue is starting to go through the floor, and their net income is starting to plummet with it, and you're seeing, and the last thing, and you're starting to see management salaries start to rise. Those are all big red flags. And honestly, like all these documents are thousands of pages long. Those are just like five or six or seven that I would just keep a look at and pay attention to, because other than that, those are like the core values that I'll call them, that in my opinion are really important, and they tell most of the story for what you need to know about the health of the company.
All right. Well, I guess we can kind of almost finish this off with, how's your share of Amazon you bought doing now?
Let me look it up. My share of Amazon that I bought, I guess a few weeks, I guess it's been like 2 or 3 weeks now. It is down. It is only down 1.1%. So
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. My average cost after the split is 124.15. So actually today at open, technically I was green for the first time.
All right, see, listen to us, you'll get rich.
Yeah.
I have a kind of funny story that may fill our last few minutes. So I guess like a week and a half ago, it was Saturday, and we didn't record on a Friday, and we recorded Saturday morning. Ended up being around 11 o'clock or so, and Hugh was taking a sweet time. However, there was and the apartment I live at has like pool parties at the like upstairs pool every Saturday, right? And this time there were mermaids. There were these like girls dressed as mermaids that were going to be there, and boy was I excited. So we get the recording done, whatever. And throughout the day, like, I'm up there a while, and dude, my keys, I cannot find them. Has my car keys, my apartment key, and I'm like, dude, I guess someone just saw Porsche keys and thought that it was gonna be something besides Macan. And we were like, fuck it, we're just gonna go in there and go in the parking garage, and we'll find it at night. One of I don't know if I should bash my apartment on here. One of Zach's trucks got stolen out of there too. So I was like, hey man, I'm not fucking not risking this one.
Yeah.
So anywho, and the reason I knew I didn't just get drunk and lose it is because I have an air tag on it, right? So I was tracking it down and I'm like, oh fuck, like they drove like a mile and a half with it. And so right as I start beeping it to try and find it while I'm at the pool, it's like AirTag not working. And I'm like, I've seen videos of someone sending them to North Korea and still being able to track it. So I'm like, someone definitely stole it. And I knew what race they were. You may think this is stereotypical of me to say, but I do know what race they were. Human, because mermaids can't drive. Anyways, you like that one? That was good.
Yeah, that was a good one. I know you were excited for your mermaids that day.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I accepted the fact that I lost it. I had to go get the car. I had to leave my car parked at my friend's house for like 3 days, and then got the keys reconfigured, my spare key reconfigured, so the guy couldn't steal my car because I had to get the whole car reconfigured. I'm at the pool 2 days ago, and dude, we have tables in the pool. Someone's like, Dan, are these your keys? My keys have been sitting in the pool for a week, like under a pool table, like in the water.
What?
Yeah, they just been there the whole time.
You dropped them?
I guess, well, for some reason, our tables have a hole in the center of them, I guess for buoyancy when it comes to the ocean or pool water. So, yeah, dude. So now I get to go back to the Porsche store, pay to reconfigure the other key to make it work, to basically redo it, if the key even works, because it was fucking underwater for a week. So, we get to check on that, but I just thought that was, a little example of, I guess there is no like life lesson behind that. But, if you lose your keys at the pool, do check under all the tables.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, dude, when we were there and someone's like, are these your keys? And I was like, no, dude, trust me, lost those a week ago. And,
And
dude,
sure enough,
bewildered. Yeah, bewildered. And that concludes today's episode of Pays Going In Raw. Do you have anything to touch on before we go? Or if you're going to trade Amazon or anything of the likes?
No, I still think that we stay inside this range for SPY a little bit longer. However, I'll probably be pretty bearish until we're through FOMC and until something changes. Like inflation still is high. Like nothing's really changed. So for us to be at 415 when we were at 380 on the same news, yeah,
December,
I'm not a buyer
puts.
up here.
December
What?
Amazon puts. December
yeah,
Amazon
I'm just not
puts.
a buyer
Let's
up
go.
here,
Call it, dude. December Amazon puts.
Penny stock.
Dude, we're gonna go back to this June 8th, and you're gonna be like, wow, holy fuck, they called like $75 Amazon puts. We should have listened. All right, guys. Well, everyone have a great week and take care. We love you. Bye.
Pennies Going In Raw is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.